Hey there, and welcome to the review of the Stargate franchise. In these podcast episodes, we'll be reviewing from the perspective of me, Layla, an avid fan of all things entertainment, and shall we say diverse perspective, for I identify as a cisgender queer woman with a physical disability who is also a licensed cognitive behavioral addiction and developmental psychologist who herself has complex PTSD, and also I'm an astrologer novice to boot, for I do believe it is all connected. To then also be born into a dysfunctional family unit, you can imagine it's been a life filled with some quite transformative experiences. What better way to utilize this unique combination of strengths to share them with the world? And that is the goal of this whole enterprise, sharing and caring. Currently, the episodes are still just reviewed by me, myself, and I, for one, am madly interested in what all y'all think about the following. So, as I believe the arts are humanity's greatest gift, for it allows us to experience and tap into the realm of infinite possibilities, let's get started. Today we will be reviewing Stargate SG-1's Singularity, episode 15 of the first season. The original air date was October 31st, Halloween, in 1997. The story was written by Robert C. Cooper, and the episode was directed again by Mario Azzopardi. In this episode, we're introduced to Katie Stewart, who grew up to be a multi-talented actress and stunt performer from Vancouver, British Columbia. You might also have seen her in X-Men 2, X-Men United, the movie The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, She's the Man, and in the episode in Supernatural where she is the girl in the comic book store that wears that fucking awesome t-shirt that Abaddon then steals and continues to wear for the rest of the season, The Devil Made Me Do It. That t-shirt is still on my bucket list to acquire, but anyway, I remember watching the episode and going like, wait, is that Cassandra? And as it turns out, yes it was. At the time of filming this episode, little Miss Katie Stewart was only 12 years old, and I remember that she blew my socks off when I first saw this episode. For a 12-year-old girl, she is a powerhouse. Great actress. Prosper, always. The episode starts off with the MGM lion roaring. Next, we see the team getting ready to embark on another mission through the Stargate for the observation of a black hole during an eclipse on another planet. Oh, the luxury that gate travel now affords us. Apparently, if the black hole won't come close enough to us to observe, we can now go to the black hole to observe. Reviewing the episode Singularity, which, considering how the episode starts out, makes you think that they're referencing to a black hole, which is what they are going to be observing. However, nudge nudge wink wink, it also most likely referred to the fact that, spoiler, Cassandra becomes the only living surviving member of her planet, Singular. So that was nicely done. Kudos to the writers for fully embracing the term singularity in both of its definitions. As they are walking up the ramps to go through the gate, the team members have a little funny, where Daniel learns that O'Neill actually is quite knowledgeable on all things astronomy, setting the stage for Sassy Carter to daringly say about her superior officer, and I mean, we were all thinking it, weren't we? At least I was. They didn't think O'Neill had a telescope on the roof just to look at his neighbors, did ya? And then they doubled down, having O'Neill say to Teal'c, not initially, which I can only say, again, Stargate magic, thank you for this moment. It always makes me laugh, especially with Teal'c's reaction, like, okay. And, I mean, after watching the movie The Voyeurs, yeah, you best think twice, my friends, just FYI. Another little thing about this moment in the episode that I really like is that O'Neill and then even more so Teal'c like hop through the gate. A little happy. As I was now watching this episode, I suddenly got very strong colonizer vibes when they arrive on the planet and you see that big billboard of Welcome to Hanka Project 169 on planet PX3, yada yada something something. I mean, plant a flag, why don't you? Which is basically what they did. We're going to be going on a few brain fart train derailments here, people, so stick with me or fast forward, as you please. Where these start and finish will be highlighted in the transcript. Off, yes, I know this is a TV show. I know this is the way that they oftentimes try to honor people who are part of creating the show, who don't always get the credit that they are due. So that in and of itself, I find a beautiful gesture, and I fully understand and I fully support. However, that is not what set me off. Let me explain. For me, it triggered the colonization, the invader aspect of it, which maybe was disproportionate considering the fact that this is a TV show and it was a single shot of a sign. But nevertheless, it elicited this response in me. And you know me, I talk about all of the things, if anything, to share what it did to me, but also to invite you to share. Like, do you share my experience? Did it make you think? Or do you think, like, Jesus Christ, woman, get a life? All responses are valid. But like I said, this is a review now mainly just done, well, by me, myself, and I. But I invite you to come join me and share your experiences and your thoughts about the episode, about my podcast review episode. Like, let's start the conversation, peeps. Come on. As you will soon notice, this sign triggered me in a lot of different ways, and I do intend to fully delve into all of the ways that it triggered me, and I'm really wondering if people share this, what you think about this, but also still shine a light on the people that they were trying to honor in this way. You had your shot, literally, and you took it, but to take all of those fictional stuff away and to really think about what this could mean, would mean, does mean, I couldn't resist really delving into the whole psychological aspect of it all. So therefore, multiple train derailments coming up. Make the TV series work. Understandable. Picture tells 1,000 words. I get it. But in these kinds of instances, it's redonkulous to think that you put a sign up that says, "Welcome to Hunka, the Douglas MacLean Memorial Observatory." Who are you putting up that sign for? Exactly. First off, I'm not even going to go into the fact that they, or at the very least Cassandra, speak perfect modern English. Like, we already covered that. That is just a given in this show to make it workable every week for 40 minutes. And the only really language barrier we truly experienced was in the movie. So for now, we are not going to dig in any deeper into that one. Also, as we've learned from episode 2, Stargate Command designates planets a code such as P3X or PX3 something, whatever. So the welcome to Hunka part, I'm assuming that that is a name that they have adopted from the indigenous people there. That was the idea behind it. And then you go and name an observatory after someone, I'm guessing, from Earth, who they have no connection or affiliation with. It's weird, right? Like, you've only been there, as you later learn, 3 months, and you're already claiming shit, naming shit. And after just having come off of the Hathor episode, this thought kicked off the memory that Egypt wasn't called Egypt by its indigenous population. Is the name that the invaders, the Greeks, gave to Egypt, because its original name was Kemet, which means black land, which refers to the fertile, rich soil around the Nile where the first settlements appeared. And in later generations, they also use Misr, which means country, and is a term that is used in Egypt today. So, like I said, this sign triggered so much thoughts and feelings. That sign says so much. That's why I love the arts. First and foremost, it makes you feel, but also it makes you think. But yeah, that's just like in the first 2 minutes of the episode, I think. A lot of feelings were to be had, which then resulted in this giant brain fart trail moment. And I thought about deleting it, but then again, given what's happening in the world right now, and showcasing yet again how little we have learned from our past, I thought, fuck it, put it in. For those of you who think like, goodness woman, what are you going on about? Yes, I do know that this is a television show, and this is their way of honoring people, which I actually find beautiful. This is a review, and we are doing a deep dive, and seeing this sign, my literal response was, there you go, colonizing shit again. Which actually surprised me, but in therapy, we make everything therapy currently. So I went and delved into my own reasoning of why did that sign trigger me? And I thought I'd share, because that's what this is all about, sharing and caring. For those interested, by saying in therapy we make everything therapy, what I mean to say is we talk about everything. Everything that happens is given room to be talked about. anything that could possibly be implicit or implied gets made explicit and gets talked about, talked through until we're all on at least the same page, even if we don't necessarily agree. We all know how everyone feels about it, which, yes, I agree, sounds like a lot of work, and sometimes it is. It is actually the thing that makes me feel the most safe. Safer than I've ever felt in my entire life, and coming from someone with complex PTSD and a very traumatic childhood, that is saying something. Here, now, nothing gets a pass. And that's actually a good thing. Sometimes, yes, it makes you feel uncomfortable in the moment, but at the same time, it allows you both get validated to feel seen, which I think is a core need that a lot of us have learned very much to do without or just accept a certain level of uncertainty. And particularly for people with complex PTSD, childhood traumas, that is what we grew up with. Throughout our lives, we get reminded that it still haunts us because we have accepted that as normal, and it is not. So to get past those uncomfortable feelings right now, nothing gets left unsaid, and therefore no miscommunication has any chance of survival. We don't always have to agree, but we both, at least for sure, know where we stand. And that in and of itself creates safety. Even though it may be uncomfortable and a lot of hard work, we are also well aware that once you stop talking about certain things, that's when certain behaviors creep in. And it's a very, very slippery slope of assumptions and looking away and secrets of little white lies, thinking that hiding something to spare someone's feelings. I mean, we've all been there. We are now truly learning that actually making everything open and showing and allowing for things to be talked about is how you create safety, is how you eliminate the risks of miscommunication. A lot gets lost in translation. I'm all for talking, making everything explicit, make everything talked about. So therefore, I did decide to keep this in. And like I said, you can fast forward. I will give you instructions on how to do that. And there I go, adding a little tidbit on what I am learning and doing, and thus can confirm actually works, as I'm now in therapy myself to heal a little more. Live and learn is my motto for everyone, including myself. For you are never too old or too late to start the healing process. Well, when you're dead. I think that's when you can officially say you kind of missed your opportunity there, but that's, if you believe in it, is what reincarnation is for. If you don't at first succeed, try again. And here we go, off topic yet again. Just coming off of Hathor and researching the whole ancient Egyptian pantheon, religion, which I delved a little more into, at least in the comparison bit, on the slides more than I did in the actual review episode. However, that also triggered the train derailment of how Egypt was invaded multiple times, particularly how I read a book, For the Love of Philae, beautiful book, written by Christian Jacques, a novelist, who writes beautiful books about the ancient Egyptian society, and I really truly recommend. He has written a 5-book series on Ramesses the Great, pharaoh that reigned for over 66 years and lived to be well in his 90s, which is a remarkable feat if you think about it, 5,000 years ago. And then the Judge of Egypt, there are 3. And then the Stone of Light about the hidden village in the Valley of the Kings and Queens, about the craftsmen and women who created the tombs in which the pharaohs were buried. Also, the writer Wilbur Smith, although I got to put a little disclaimer on that one, because even though the books are great and give off the same ancient Egyptian living it vibe, he's a tad more graphic. He knew how to describe certain scenes. They still haunt my brain to this day. I have a very vivid imagination, so that can either help you or hurt you in this case. He too is a great novelist. If you are even remotely interested in novels, murder mysteries, and you have an interest or a fascination or just an appreciation of the ancient Egyptian society, I seriously recommend these writers. Researching this, talking about it on the previous podcast episode, getting a little swept up, remembering Christianity basically kicked out the ancient Egyptian pantheon of gods, and then the Greeks came in and started claiming and renaming shit. Thus, the indigenous name got lost throughout the ages, and we now know the country and their gods as what the invaders called it. For instance, the name Egypt comes from the Greek Aegyptos. The Greeks just took that name and stuck that label on the entire country. So all the names given to the gods are all how the Greeks named them, not how the indigenous people called their gods. For instance, Osiris was called Usir, Isis was called Ast, and Hathor was most likely pronounced as Hutr. Just that knowledge suddenly struck me again hard. The book by Christian Jacques that I just mentioned, For the Love of Philae, that book haunts me. Set at the 6th century after Christ, it's written about how Christianity is being imposed throughout Egypt. And on the temple island of Philae, it's the last community faithful to the old ways, and they are struggling against the invader. And I've read it. It's a great book, but I gotta say, I've never been able to read it again because my heart broke while reading that. For this is based on facts. Just to read the demise of a society that had thrived for thousands of years and then to get decimated by another religion coming in saying, fuck your bullshit, this is our God and he's the one true God and you need to denounce all your previous gods and convert your ass to our one true God, which we decided to also make its first commandment. Funnily enough, where they also immediately lost me right there and then. But like that hurt to read. I mean, and after the Christians came the Greeks, and after the Greeks came the Muslims, and I mean, Egyptian has seen some shit. The thing that just absolutely killed me, prior to the invasion by the Christians, Egypt had survived for many thousands of years, embracing, growing, ever evolving their own pantheon of gods, but also welcoming other religions to live with them side by side. The fact that the Christians couldn't do that, and instead said convert or die, that is where you lost me. Not to mention that in ancient Egypt, men, women, for all intents and purposes, were equals. They both had rights. Plus, the LGBTQ community was part of society. It wasn't condemned or vilified or prosecuted. And sex before marriage, no biggie. Something that both Christianity and the Islam put a stop to thoroughly. I mean, the same with the fucking Crusades. I never got that either. It's like heralded of brave knights traveling the world, fighting, trying to reclaim their land, reclaim them from the people that you stole it from prior to the Muslims kicking you out, after the Greeks already kicked you out. It was all just territorial bullshit. How did that get romanticized? Oh yeah, it's called whitewashing. I'm probably saying shit that pisses a lot of people off right now. I know. This is why I made the slide with that image of Flynn with all the swords at his throat from Tangled. There's no doubt this is not a popular opinion. And yet I can't but say that it's just learn your history, people. This is what I believe. I'm not saying that you have to believe it. But to me, the whitewashing, the narratives that have lasted for 2,000 years, it needs to start making room for the entire truth, not just the truth that you like best, where you oftentimes conveniently forget your own role in history, especially if it's not as glorious as you would have liked it to be in hindsight, or I mean, how at the time you couldn't figure out that that was bad, I still can't get over, but live and learn. Or, Lord have mercy, I wish we did. That's the whole point. We're not learning. So here I am, reviewing a Stargate episode, really talking about religion and genocides and whatnot. But I got to say, you know, the genocide part was part of this episode. It just never really got talked about a lot. And then that sign, after coming off of the Hathor and everything that's happening in Gaza right now, triggering that thought, there you go, colonizing shit again, which surprised my own brain. Like, damn girl, that come from? And now with the whole therapy of it all, we talk, everything is made therapy. Ironically, just goes to show that actually talking about everything is the only way to heal. Because it's the only way for you to truly feel safe and allow yourself to feel your feelings, think all those thoughts, and by discussing them with other people, allowing other people to either validate you or try and give you another perspective. Either way, it's healing. The thoughts that you have color the way you feel and how you see the world. And like I said, I love the arts, I love entertainment, for it allows us to be exposed to stuff that we may not have otherwise been exposed to. It can literally entertain you. It can teach you stuff. It can make you think. Which is, again, why I started a podcast on reviewing stuff, in the hope that other people will join me. And I know you're out there, so come on, speak up. This is your platform. And to wrap up this part of the whole brain fart train derailment, doubling down of it all, Let me just say, I will forever refer to myself as an omnist because I'm not an atheist. I do believe. I just believe that there's truth in every single religion. It's all based off of each other. It's all inspired by, stolen from, copied off of each other, and it's all the same creator. It's actually mentioned as such, but what happened in this episode was a genocide. Cassandra's people were wiped off the map, or in this case, planet. So, yes, not actually by Stargate Command personnel itself, yet the Goa'uld Nirrti committed genocide as an attempt to strike a blow at Earth. Therefore, I think also because of what's happening currently in the world, this sign triggered me in that aspect as well. I'm greatly saddened to know that there are currently 8 genocides taking place on Earth. The one that's on our screens the most is what is currently being allowed to happen in Gaza. Region just in the last 5, 6, 7, maybe 10,000 years has seen so much bloodshed. And for what? Truly. Like, if you really think about it, like, what is your issue here? You all say that you do it in the name of God or to honor your God or whatever righteous bullshit you're spinning yourself. At the same time, you claim that your God created everything and everyone. But somehow in your brain you made yourself the superior being, so you were created right and they were created wrong. But if God created everything, wouldn't he then have created everything? And what are you doing? Like, by definition, all the religions have an aspect of that killing is bad. So I truly go into a tailspin trying to understand the reasoning as a psychologist mostly, because as a person just no. But like, what is the reasoning here? I truly do not get it. I don't think I want to get it, but as a psychologist, I'm intrigued to at least hear people's reasoning. For instance, the bit of irony of it all is that Israel was founded in response to the atrocities that happened during the Holocaust, where they were being slaughtered at the hands of the Nazis. Genocide was committed upon them, and now, 2, 3 generations later, they have now become the ones committing genocide. And at such an alarming, destructive, horrifying rate, they even surpassed the Nazis. They surpassed any and all warfare in the past 200 years. And with that I mean the amount of people, number of children that they have murdered, slaughtered, butchered in just 6 months has surpassed any and all war criminals in modern history. And currently America is still standing by them. Is still preventing a ceasefire. Israel repeatedly has said that they will continue until there is no one left, and we are just letting them. And the horrifying thing is, this is what happens when you don't heal from your own trauma. You are at great risk of becoming the thing that hurt you. Hurt people. It's a cliche because it's true. So yes, this one sign triggered all of those thoughts and feelings, and that is why I went on this little existential crisis / brain fart enrollment, because it did elicit this response. Maybe others as well, but once again, this is currently still a review just by me, myself, and I until y'all start chiming in. So I thought I would put it in there, and yes, I also thought of putting a disclaimer ahead of it. Okay, I'm gonna stop make people hate me now, preferably, hopefully. A picture tells 1,000 words, and this sign tells us a lot of information with just a single shot. And it's a TV show, and I get it. But at the same time, what these shows, hopefully my podcast review, allows to happen is that it makes you think. And with all the talks currently and all the happenings currently, I thought it was relevant enough to add it to the episode. I'm sorry, this is an episode of Stargate. But, this is what I mean when you watch something from your current perspective. That all of that got triggered by a simple sign. Like I said, the sign triggered a lot. And I'm now going to wrap it up and go make it a little more educational fun instead of just, educational and depressing. So, to honor the sentiment that the writers, creators, designers were going for those of you who are interested, I'm going to tell you who these people were that they were honoring. Oftentimes people get laser focused on the actors, the characters that they portray. Sometimes the writers, if they are recurring or writer of the show, the creator of the shows, Jonathan Glasner and Brett Wright. They were the ones that took Stargate the movie to Stargate SG-1 the TV series, so they get a special place in the fandom. Even though I think Jonathan Glasner tapped out after the first 2 seasons, and the series ran for 10 full seasons. So, I mean, same with Eric Kripke. He created the supernatural universe with Sam and D. Winchester, but he tapped out after 5 seasons. And the series ran for 10 more years, according to some people's joy and other people's dismay, but that's beside the point. As it turns out, the planet's name Honka was in reference to the MGM studio executive Hank Cohen. Apparently, the dude has quite the legacy. He grew the MGM television brand through award-winning series specials and made-for-television movies, and he was responsible for many successful series franchises such as Stargate SG-1, Stargate Atlantis, Outer Limits, LAPD, and also he was a supervisor on the Full House and Family Matters TV shows. And he developed the America's Funniest Home Videos franchise, so thank you, Hank Cohen, for your quite remarkable and extensive legacy. I don't think anyone in the 90s grew up not knowing at least one of those TV shows that you helped supervise or produce, so thank you. And are you perchance related to Matt Cohen, the actor? Just asking, because that's quite a fine pedigree. And incidentally, in this episode, they really doubled down because the Douglas MacLean Memorial Observatory was named for Douglas MacLean, an art director for the TV show. An award-winning Canadian art director, as it turned out to be, for he was the assistant art director for the first 3 seasons of Stargate SG-1, and also the art director for the 4th and 5th season of the show. He won multiple awards for Best Production Design of Stargate SG-1, and also became the set designer for Stargate Universe. So he has been with the Stargate family for quite a long time, so getting your name on screen in the first season, not bad. But it appears that according to IMDb, he hasn't been active since 2011, so let's hope he is enjoying his retirement. Okay, back to the episode, which is like, 4 minutes in? And still, we've already recorded a review episode. It's a little shy of 30 minutes. So, kudos to me, I guess. Moving on. In addition to the oh-so-perfectly set music, no doubt labeled in closed captioning as ominous, Teal'c's remark of SG-7 not meeting them at the gate as scheduled immediately lets the viewer know not all is well. And yep, as the team rounds the corner, they find dead bodies. O'Neill directs the team to go to MOP 4, which stands for Mission-Oriented Protective Posture Level 4, which is the highest level of protection. All protective gear is worn, meaning the overgarment, overboots, protective mask, and gloves are worn. Daniel and Carter get to work, and O'Neill takes the extra step of decontaminating his hands, seeing that he touched the dead body. Teal'c, though, remarkably remains his cool, calm, collected self and doesn't do shit. They soon discover that SG-7, and as it turns out, everyone on the planet is dead. Or at least, I think by the end the tally is a little over 1,000. And this, again, also highlights that we only know of the village near the gate, and we oftentimes refer to it as the planet. But I mean, how far have you explored, honestly? I mean, just look at how big-ass our planet is. And again, I think this is something that the viewers gave back to the writers, because in later episodes that once again gets touched upon, though not ever really fully explained. But I really liked that touch. It's in this season, so we'll clap back to this moment in that particular episode. Anyway, let's just go with that the entire village community near the gate, or on this entire freaking planet, was murdered. And as this is still a family show, let's not linger on that sad fact for too long, because soon thereafter we see that they have set up a decontamination bunker, and Doc Fraser is joining our team off-world. O'Neill is first for his physical examination, because of course he actually touched one of the dead bodies, but not before we once again have Daniel sneeze to remind us he's a nerd, he's fragile, he's delicate. Really, people? Was that supposed to be funny? To me, it's just annoying. How about y'all? The next scene, we see them in full hazmat gear this time, except for Teal'c, of course, with his magical symbiote for protection, I'm assuming. And so it seems is he. And they are now out and about tagging all the dead bodies. Here, conveniently through their conversation, Daniel gives us a little backstory to the history of Stargate Command and the people of Hunka, as apparently the Hunkan people had a prophecy of an impending apocalypse during the darkness, the eclipse that they were here to watch. And Stargate Command had told them that it was just an eclipse and there was nothing to worry about, but Daniel laments that they were actually right all along, seeing as they're now all dead. Yet, surprise, surprise, not everyone is dead, for they discover Cassandra. And I like that little bit with Tilk, where it's now, yes, very convenient that he is the only one not in hazmat gear, that he gets sent into the bushes to appear friendly, enticing Cassandra to come out in the open. It's cute to see her holding on to Tilk, clearly not afraid of him, though it's a bit of a shame that in the rest of the episode there is no interaction between them anymore, and she just latches on to Carter. I would have liked to have seen Tilk interact with the child more, especially after we saw him do so wonderfully with Ryak, his own son, granted, but still, this is really a very Carter-centered episode. Maybe because they thought we now showed that she is smart and she can kick ass, but we also want to show that she still has some maternal side as well, which I'm not hating. I love Samantha, and I love Amanda Tapping. It was just interesting that it became a very motherly, female-oriented, only now less annoying as it was back in the Hathor episode. During Cassandra's examination, Carter keeps her company and tries to bond with her, and this scene always gets me. That this little girl watched everyone that she knows and loves die in a matter of, hours? And her apathy and her refusal to speak is quite on par for traumatized children, although she does make eye contact, which you could possibly even call a glare, which makes her refusal to speak more an act of defiance and not necessarily that she's in shock or out of fear. The moment that always gets me is where she hangs the dead body toe tag on her own shirt, and that scene always breaks my heart. Though they make it seem that Carter interprets it as Cassandra expressing her fear of dying, that is not how I viewed this, though. What do you think was Cassandra's motivation to hang that toe tag on her own shirt, and then later on her refusal to let Carter take it? For me, it wasn't her expressing her fear of dying. To me, it felt like she identified with everyone that had died, and that they were her people, and that if they were all getting toe tagged, so should she. That's how I interpreted it. Apparently, in addition to toe tagging all the dead bodies, they have also been taken soil samples and water samples. For Doc Fraser now discloses that everything in their immediate surroundings is contaminated, though she does state that it isn't an airborne virus. And that little nugget of information kind of hits a bit differently now after we've just had a pandemic that caused us, or me, to have to stay pretty much indoors 24/7 for 2 whole fucking years because we did have an airborne virus. It just makes you once again realize how fucking scary COVID actually is. I mean, I dodged it for 3.5 years, and it still caught me in the end, and it still knocked me flat on my ass for a complete month, even with all my vaccinations. And something else that I noted in this episode, and I wonder if other people have that too, Daniel's self-centeredness annoyed the crap out of me. Usually I love him and he's caring, and he comes with a moral compass that actually does point due north. But this episode, his self-confessed, yes, granted, self-centeredness annoyed the crap out of me. He asks his own test results. He doesn't ask about the other people on the team. He doesn't even infer after the girl who just lost everyone and everything that she ever knew, which just doesn't seem to fit his character, as we have up until now been shown his character. It is then O'Neill that suggests that they take the girl back with them, and seeing that there's no one left alive, yeah, that kind of seemed like a no-brainer to me, but sure, make it an official order. This is now where Cassandra suddenly latches on, literally, to Carter, making Carter unable to stay behind and observe the eclipse and black hole, which is kind of odd because she seems to be the person on the team other than the hobby astronomer that O'Neill is, as the person to stay behind, seeing that she is their astrophysicist. And while we're on that, I found it particularly odd. Later in the episode, O'Neill has to explain to Tilk, which makes no fucking sense, what a black hole is, because unlike O'Neill, who maybe has been observing through his fun little telescope on the roof, Tilk has actually been traveling in space. So that, again, we get it that Tilk doesn't know shit that for us is common knowledge, if you want to call it that. But how can Tilk not understand what a black hole is? Maybe he calls it something different, but giant sucky black thing in space sucking things towards it. I think he could have made the leap and surmised what they meant, even if they didn't use the same terminology in Jaffa Land. Another thing that I only now noticed and that kind of annoyed me in this episode after seeing where they put up Hathor in the previous episode, I am rather surprised to see where they put up Cassandra in that god-awful depressing room. And then trying to tell her, I'll be able to see you through that camera. For one, creepy. For two, no, after such a traumatic event, you do not leave a child alone like that. And for three, does the girl even know what a camera is? Luckily, though, later in the episode, they do try to pimp up her room a little bit, but this really now stood out to me, especially on the Hathor. The difference is ginormous. What I like here is that a predominantly white cast, and I do believe an entirely white writing room, truly owns all the consequences. The good, the bad, the ugly that gate travel might have. We've already established that by them traveling through the gate, they have now alerted the Goa'uld, a formidable enemy, of our progress, making Earth a pretty high priority target for them. Also that they highlight that we've had, of course, the Broca Divide, where our Earth people got infected with a virus on another planet. They now acknowledge that they unwittingly, though it may have been, like their forefathers, they might have introduced a harmless bacteria from Earth to Hanka, which then they're mutated, resulting in a virus that killed their entire indigenous population. And SG-7, they unwittingly did that, and they truly seem to grapple with that possibility and seem to genuinely feel bad about it. I mean, it's a TV show, but they feel horrified that that could possibly have happened, which I do want to give them credit, because it's quite unlike the United States' forefathers, who knowingly and intentionally introduced smallpox to the indigenous people of the Americas with the explicit hope it would decimate the indigenous population, if not completely eradicate them. And come to think of it, that kind of means that your forefathers had some goldish traits. Just saying. And to think that these are the people that the current conservative Republicans are coding as their truest patriotic heroes kind of says it all. And also shows us what time we're living in and on which side of history at least half of the United States is currently marching. Oi. But that is another brain fart moment for another time. Not now. But it had to be said. So there I said it. It ain't all that, because they also do highlight that seeing that Cassandra is the sole survivor, she can also quite possibly hold the cure for this disease and maybe even for other illnesses currently on Earth. So there is your silver lining, true Stargate style. But the fact that they acknowledge all of those facets, all of them valid and very real dangers and risks of gate travel and exploring in and of itself, I really appreciated it. That they owned it, which I think is what we all should do. Own what can happen, and if then something does happen, you take responsibility of it, and then try and find a way to find a silver lining. That's always a good thing to do, is see what you can learn from it, as it is the mature thing to do. The next bit that I cannot let pass without saying something about it is, yes, I know it's a TV show, and no, it's not a medical TV show, so it's not the main focus to get all the things believably or even remotely in the realm of true, as, for instance, ER was, or Grey's Anatomy somewhat should have been, but the medical, just everything in this episode is, shall we say, lacking? I mean, nice try, but I mean, the monitor is set for an adult, not a child. And another interesting thing, and I think something that we are now no longer allowed to, and I'm actually quite supportive of that. We see a girl, a 12-year-old girl, as it turns out, with an exposed chest. Although they have taped the cardiac pads over her nipples, and that is something, I guess. But I think in today's day and age, these kinds of scenes are no longer allowed. And I don't know how Katie Stewart felt at the time that they were filming this. I mean, were there only women in the room? I don't think so. But still, I think today's day and age, we are no longer, and rightfully so if you ask me, allowed to do that. I mean, I looked different at the age of 12, let's just put it that way. She still looks a bit younger, I think. Hasn't yet developed breasts, but still, again, from today's perspective, watching this now, I was like, ooh, this is borderlining awkward. Not to mention illegal, at least now, with all the pedos out there. I think today's film crew, actors, are no longer required or allowed even to do this on screen. And like I said, rightfully so, unfortunately, because there are way too many perverts in this world. Another thing of note in this episode is that they have split up the team, basically. It's O'Neill and Tilk, and Daniel and Carter. And maybe that was to ease up a little on the sexual tension between O'Neill and Carter. And if they would have been together in the same place during all of these happenings, it would have been too much of mommy and daddy playing house. I wonder if that was a consideration that they took into account in how they wrote this episode. What do y'all think? Somehow it's explained that by shocking Cassandra's heart, they triggered the creation of the device using the elements in her blood, but that they figure out that it's holding her heart and at the same time has a decaying barrier. How they figure all that out? I'm guessing they had a magic 8-ball or something. I don't know how they make that make sense. Who knows? I like it. It's a good idea. It's just the backstory raises a lot of questions. And then you could say, well, maybe they learned from Sharae, who is now a Goa'uld. However, Sharae grew up on Abydos. She never went to Earth, so she wouldn't know these things. And the kidnapped airman from the first episode was killed before she was even taken as a host. So they couldn't have learned any Earth information from her either. Or, honestly, am I missing something here? Or is this a reach by the writers? That when you look at it now, after what I just said, it don't make no sense. If it doesn't make sense to you, please explain. They have now realized that Cassandra is a Trojan horse. They suddenly seem to have come to the conclusion that the Goa'ulds know the humans so very well that in killing everyone on Hunka, bar one, a child, the Earthlings would feel so guilty that they would take her to Earth, that she would then get a heart attack, that we would have the capabilities to shock her heart, something that's needed to set this whole thing in motion in the first place. Also, that Carter had the smarts to only test microscopic elements to see what kind of a Big Bang it would give. Again, how did you figure that out? How did you get those microscopic particles? And how did they know to the second when that decaying barrier would be completely dissolved? Maybe it's science and physics and stuff that goes way over my head, but at the same time, I couldn't help think on separate occasions, how do you know? How can you be so sure? This is something that you've never heard of, never seen before, yet you seem to figure it out oh so fast. Not even mentioning, and I wonder if other people share this element of the storyline, how fucking annoying Daniel's continuous self-centeredness is. Asking, after seeing how explosive those elements are we safe? When they have tested the materials in the sub-basement, which is a few levels below him, I guess. And I get that they needed someone to say those words, but to make everyone not even flinch or give any hint that they are worried, and then having Daniel to constantly be the one to go, am I okay? Just doesn't seem to suit his character all that much, in my opinion. Do you agree, or do you think I'm, again, making a thing out of a not such a big thing? But just watching this now, it, again, annoyed me that he kept being so self-centered and the rest was no biggie. Either played up for everyone and make Daniel say the thing, maybe, but the contrast now is so great that it just annoyed me. Like I said, I get that someone needs to say it, but you can write it into the narrative differently without making him such a self-centered, scaredy asshole. Because this just made me think dude, fuck's sake, piss off. Which is not a sentiment I usually carry for Daniel. But in this episode, he annoyed me. And now we learn why it is so very, very, very convenient that Tilk is the one that stayed behind, for when Tilk and O'Neill are observing the eclipse hitting its completion point and they get a good look at the black hole, they notice something else. A Goa'uld attack or Hatak vessel, which apparently Tilk can identify from the outside, is of Apophyse's enemy, Nirrti. And seeing that this is the first time that O'Neill has seen a Hatak vessel, we needed Tilk to identify it, but that he can then also identify it as the ship of Nirrti, and then in later episodes, all the freaking Hatak vessels look the same. It kind of made me now wonder, how does he know? Plus, also, they are introducing another Goa'uld, although at some point Tilk refers to the Goa'uld as a he, but in a later episode it becomes a she. And then, yes, the Goa'ulds are technically genderless, so you could say that maybe Tilk knew of Nirrti when they were still in a male body, and after a little bit, they are now going to be taking over a female body, I guess, or just it was oddly specific and yet not specific at all. But it was a new name, and we will be seeing seeing Nirrti again. So, okay, later on, they can refer back to this episode and what happened on Hanka to link that to this particular gold, which is what they do. Fully understandable. But then why they went from a dude to a lady? Maybe because, people bitched and moaned about the fact that all the Goa'ulds were dudes, except the Goa'uld that took over Shara, but she was kind of like the queen to Apophis, but she didn't seem to have a lot of autonomy. And of course, Hathor, and she too seemed to be the consort wife with zero true power or autonomy as she was married to her daddy. So I do like it that they later on created a female Goa'uld that wasn't someone's consort or daughter or whatever patriarchal notion they shoved onto these characters, and really truly made her a standalone, powerful ruler. History is full of those too, Then they have this supposedly emotional moment between Daniel and Carter where Daniel tries to comfort Carter as she tries to come to grips with Cassandra's impending death, and she expresses the despair and hurt she feels thinking about how the Goa'uld used a child to deliver their blow to Earth, saying, "Sometimes I forget you're not military," to Daniel, from which I think we are to take that the military teaches you to remain detached and, do they? Do they train you to become numb to the suffering of others? Okay, I know that's kind of rhetorical, but that, in my eyes, they try to make you more used to it, as in so you don't freeze in the moment when something happens. Also, isn't your whole shtick to prevent suffering? You're soldiering to prevent someone or something from suffering. It's, technically it's not about going out and killing people. The official line says that you are there to protect and serve and prevent suffering, although, yes, I know the official line and the reality of it all usually does mean that you just become very proficient at killing. But just the phrasing, sometimes I forget you're not military. It struck a chord with me, and I think it's also one of the major problems, once again, that our society suffers from, is we have forgotten why, deep down, why we have a military, and that you are technically there to defend and protect people who can't do that for themselves, to help people, to save people. But oftentimes the narrative has become on how well you can shoot people, how well you can blow them up with a push of a button, how well you can dominate someone else. And that, to me, was a thought that once again made me realize that this is something that we should talk about more to remind ourselves what the true definition of a soldier is, or once again should be. You've got that quote, right? War is old men talking, young men dying. That kind of says it all. And once again, I have the utmost respect for the sacrifice and the soldiers themselves. My issue mainly is the people that give the orders and what their intentions are. Just look at the Afghan war. That was 20 years, a lot of men dying, getting injured, a lot of collateral damage, and then the Taliban won all of it back in, 2 weeks? That stung to me, and I didn't even fight or lose anyone in that war. So I can only imagine how it was for the people that have lived and suffered and lost in that war to see all of it revert back in such a brief amount of time. That plane and the people running after it is again an image that will stay with me for the rest of my life as a testament to what failures my generation has had to witness, and that I truly hope we learn from. Suddenly, the Stargate Command personnel go cold-hearted as fuck, for they intend to return Cassandra to her planet to have her explode there. Did not even tell her what's happening? Dude, really? That doesn't even cover what happens later on, but yeah. Unfortunately, as they are planning on returning her to Hanka, on that planet, O'Neill and Teal'c are now under attack from gliders. And Teal'c suddenly now remembers a story about Nirrti, where they were known for sabotaging people to explode upon entering the gate to stick it to Apophis and destroy that planet's gate. And luckily, as Earth is dialing out, O'Neill and Teal'c dial in, with O'Neill coming down the ramp yelling, "Get the girl away from the gate." Now, they can't get Cassandra through the gate. They decide to drive her to a bunker that is supposedly equipped to handle that magnitude of an explosion, and Carter volunteers to take Cassandra down into the basement. And as they are descending in the elevator, Cassandra suddenly wakes up, making this a lot harder on Carter. Though Carter starts crying, she flat out lies to Cassandra, saying that she'll be back, which, not cool. you can be real with this girl without lying to her. And I do like that they have Cassandra then rightfully remind Carter, you promised never to leave me alone. For what they do now, I mean, they were gonna send her back to her planet. I don't know what they were gonna tell her, but like, okay, maybe, as in, you are immune, the planet is safe for you. Maybe there are villagers a little further away that could take care of you, like something along those lines. But now in this bunker, Carter leaving her there after flying to her face, walking back out, closing that giant ass vault door, pissed me the fuck off. I don't think anyone in their right mind could do that. Or at least I couldn't. Maybe other people can, because yes, that would have meant that you would have died with the girl. But really? No. I would have died with the girl. I'm sorry, I would have. Or at the very least, I would have told her the truth. Just, yeah, that's me. And we have this emotional moment of Carter locking Cassandra in the vault, going back up in the elevator, crying, angry, and, well, I'd imagine. And suddenly she seems to have a revelation, and she decides to go back down. O'Neill gets a little pissy, but as Carter tells them that Cassandra is awake, this news at least seems to horrify Daniel. Finally, some emotion by Daniel that I actually, relate to. And Carter says, now, all of a sudden, grabbing hold of Cassandra, we are not going to die. I mean, up until now, you didn't even tell the girl that she was going to die in the first place, so newsflash, and oh good, like again, I understand what they're trying to attempt to do, and it was very moving and it was very emotional, but there are so many moments in this episode concerning the possible exploding girl, particularly the conversations, that I think they could have handled better. And also, I don't think they paid enough attention to the fact that apparently microscopic particles of those two elements inside Cassandra's chest caused a big-ass giant explosion to the point that it blew up the entire room, and they are very certain that whatever amount of those elements combined can be held in these bunkers. I mean, they do decide to stay thinking that they should be safe, but still this kind of now made me think this could also, still blow up the state, or like, you don't know how powerful that is. To destroy a gate, as we later learn, takes a lot of oomph, like a lot. So had this not worked out and had Cassandra gone boom, I have notes again on this, like, yeah. And then when the countdown hits 0 and Daniel goes like, I don't feel anything, makes you think like, were you expecting to feel the ground shake or something? Like, there are so many variables left unsaid. There's so much left. We could have used a little more clarity here. They tried to show us that is a big, big boom, but they don't really disclose how big of a boom. And then they are standing 30 levels up, expecting to feel something, not exactly knowing if they will be safe. Just, I've seen this done better. I don't know exactly off the top of my head where I've seen this done better, but this felt a little iffy. But then after, apparently she don't go boom, we learned that the revelation that Carter had was that as they got Cassandra away from the gate, she got better, meaning that she wasn't going to blow, which is quite an extrapolation, but okay, if you say so, and apparently, yeah, but okay. Next, we see the team with a creeper token, this weirdo hat, at the park with Cassandra. And O'Neill here says, and I do really like this part of the episode, that on Earth, we have a rule. Every kid has to have a dog. And that is a rule I can get behind. And we are now also made aware that both Cassandra and Teal'c apparently never have seen a dog before. Which, yeah, it's funny. It's cute. Though both Cassandra and Carter have expressed their love for each other, Cassandra is now going to be living with Dr. Fraser and not Carter, because of course Carter is going to be too busy traveling to other planets, because we need all of our team members to remain available to really get a lot of storylines in, or something, I guess. And it's what happens oftentimes in TV shows with teams, that there's little to no family or partner connected to it, although I think that like what they did in NCIS with McGee and Delilah, I really like that. They are a cute couple. Sometimes she's part of the episode, but more often than not, she isn't. But they're still a couple, and they still make it work. So I think they could do with that more, particularly because oftentimes now the narrative is that if you live this kind of life, if you serve, with a lot of military movies and TV shows, it's always the job takes everything away from you. You don't have friends, you have multiple failed marriages, no marriages. You do realize that that means that you're promoting how dysfunctional that job actually is. To properly be able to perform at your job, you need to have something outside of it. Something something to ground you. So again, that thought struck me during this moment where I'm like, I understand the need for the characters to remain available because then they can do anything and everything with them. I mean, Daniel is technically still married, Sharae, but I think he's already tapped 2 different ladies, though not entirely with consent. But still, they write those kinds of storylines, and then therefore they need the characters to remain unattached. But it just made me think on how often military officers are described as being unable to have working, loving marriages, relationships, parenting, while in real life, a shit ton of military officers have families, have children. So shouldn't you also, I don't know, show that it can be done? I mean, that's something that I would love to see coming from a very dysfunctional family myself. It has been very nice to see people who can make it work, that it doesn't have to be full of tension and conflict and fighting, that there are people, even though they decide to divorce, that they still find a way to have a functioning, healthy relationship. We need more examples of functioning, healthy, even though maybe it's not the main character in the movie or the episode or show. I think it is something that we need. And in Stargate, I think, without maybe spoiling too much, there's a lot of lovely relationships, funny relationships, amazing, cool. I mean, the bromances are off the chart, I got to say. Truly. The bromances in Stargate are off the chart. But the romantic relationships, well, that's not entirely true. There are some moments which weren't all that, but let's just say it's a note that I have on content created today. I know that it can't be perfect because then why would people want to watch it? Because yes, we are dysfunctional as fuck in that sense. That we want to see people in misery, apparently. But we're also suckers for comeback and a revival and redemption stories. And I think we can do more with that. I already like how the animations are really tackling difficult, very important topics such as grief, emotions. I mean, Inside Out, I recommend for any and all, whether you have kids or not, because it just very accurately, lovingly, cutesy tells you how emotions and personalities come into being and how it works. But also, despite Encanto triggering me, it is a great movie on family dysfunction. The part that triggers me, though, is, sorry, spoiler, in the end, it has a happy ending because it is an animation story. And always the ending reminds me that that is not in my family ever gonna happen. But still. And I mean, I'm not the only one. The Cinema Therapy dudes also reviewed that movie, and one of the dudes had to cry because that movie triggered him because he too came from a dysfunctional family. And I read a few of the comments and they were amazing to read because a lot of us were moved by, or in my case, triggered by that movie because it touched upon a topic that we have only now quite recently really started to talk about trauma, about childhood trauma, about dysfunctional families, and how beautiful it is when we talk to each other, like make everything explicit and really try and listen to each other. You don't have to agree, but you can at least respect each other. Something that like I said, I'm not really feeling in my family and not really expecting is possible, unfortunately, in my family. All in all, this was, when you think about it, quite a heavy episode, but it does have a sort of happy ending with the ladies practically skipping off to go on the swings, which, nice touch, especially as we came very close to blowing up that kid. So all in all, nice ending, I guess. The next episode is called The Korai, and that one continues to greatly move me, for it is where Tilk and his history of pretty much being a war criminal finally, truly, fully gets addressed, and in a way like kudos, props, all the awards. I don't know why this episode isn't talked about more, for this is not an easy topic to broach, because no matter how you spin it, Tilk was a war criminal. He did atrocious things while he was the first prime of Apophis, otherwise he would never have become Apophis' first prime. But the way that they do it in this episode, I respect, and I tip my hat, because this was not an easy topic to broach. Like, the same with the First Commandment episode. Now this episode, these are difficult topics, and the Cold Lazarus episode with grieving the loss of your child. These are all very heavy topics, and still this is a PG, I think, rated TV show that also in those episodes still gives you levity, Stargate magic. Also, it makes you think, and it doesn't shy away from the fact that Teal'c was and, is a war criminal. And it's not the only time that they do this. Later in the series, this once again gets acknowledged that Teal'c has a very bloody history. And the way that they spin it to still give him value, basically give him his redemption arc, is done in such a beautiful way that I have the utmost respect for this TV show, for its creators, for the writers, for the actors, just for the entire village that made this series allow this episode to reach our screens. Because this episode, like I said, I remember it. It's one of my favorites in the entire show. It's definitely in my top 10, I think, of the entire show, because it moved me and it really made me think after I first saw it, and still does. And I wonder if it makes you think as well. So I hope to see you back here for the next episode. Till then, you know where to find me. For additional reviews and content on a variety of subjects in addition to this franchise, come check out our podcast channel, as well as our Instagram account, Let's Review with Layla and You. For additional in-depth content, as well as provide us with a place for reciprocation where we can all share and exchange our ideas, thoughts, and whatever else we feel like sharing with the world. So come meet up with me, myself, and I, drop a comment, give us a follow, and come share what y'all think. And to truly make this the all-inclusive podcast we set it out to be, come visit us in the RSS community where all our episodes come with a transcript. I do hope to see you there.